Yesterday, we have wrapped up the fourth component of the Noble Eightfold Path, right action. So far, we have covered the first four factors: right view, right intention, right speech, and right action, which we just covered the past few days. So we are halfway. And if you see the scroll bar here, it's also around the half. It's like somewhere in the middle. So not too bad. We are halfway towards enlightenment. Are we? Not exactly. Do you even remember what we read the 1 month ago? Yeah. So that's the thing about enlightenment. It's not just you read the whole Noble Eightfold Path and then you get enlightened. But after reading, you have to do reflection, you have to do contemplation, and then you have to repeat again. Because reading once, usually people don't directly remember it. And you have to read many times, and then after you remember it, you have to reflect it. And then after you reflect it, you have to contemplate it. And then most importantly, we have to apply it in our daily lives. Until at a certain point where we realize the teaching for ourselves. The teaching become us. We are the embodiment of the teachings. Yeah. Until we reach that point, we still have a lot of work to do. Okay. So before I continue, any questions so far for the four components or four factors that we have covered? Do you want to go back to a certain part and then we can review that part? Probably tomorrow we can spend one session to review what we have read. Okay, but for today, I want to continue for this right livelihood. Sama Ajiva. Right livelihood is concerned with ensuring that one earns one's living in a righteous way. For a lay disciple, the Buddha teaches that wealth should be gained in accordance with certain standards. One should acquire it only by legal means, not illegally. One should acquire it peacefully, without coercion or violence. One should acquire it honestly, not by trickery or deceit. And one should acquire it in ways which do not entail harm and suffering for others. The Buddha mentions 5 specific kinds of livelihood which brings harm to others and are therefore to be avoided. Dealing in weapons, in living beings, including raising animals for slaughter, as well as slave trade and prostitution. In meat production and butchery, in poisons, and in intoxicants, from Anguttara Nikaya 5.177. He further names several dishonest means of gaining wealth which fall under wrong livelihood: practicing deceit, treachery, soothsaying, trickery, and usury, from Majjhima Nikaya 117. Obviously, any occupation that requires violation of right speech and right action is a wrong form of livelihood. But other occupations, such as selling weapons or intoxicants, may not violate those factors and yet be wrong because of their consequences for others. So a long paragraph, but let's tackle it one by one. So for us, for lay disciple, there is a certain standards that the Buddha has laid. What are those standards? We should acquire it by legal means, first one. So don't break any law to make a living. And then we should also acquire it peacefully, okay, without coercion or violence. and honestly, without any trickery or deceit, and also without entailing any harm or suffering for others. So what are the examples by legal means? So recently, there is a government regulation regarding the number of dine-in packs. The recent one, they allow up to 5, but only from the same household. But before that, it's only 2. So I would say most F&B establishments follow the latest regulation, but some F&B, they probably flout the rules and they just allow diners to have more than 2 packs. And of course, the few months back, there is also cases with the illegal KTV. Yeah, perhaps that is a very recent example of acquiring wealth not by legal means. Yeah. So can you guys think of other examples? Okay. If not, then peacefully without coercion or violence. This is also kind of linked back to the previous part where right action and then the component of abstaining from taking what is not given. If you remember the list, there is like robbery, snatching. Yeah, this can also links falls back to that category. You snatch other people's belongings with coercion or violence. One should acquire it honestly, not by trickery or deceit. One example is also linked back to right action. Abstaining from taking what is not given. One list, there is something called using false weight or measures. So let's actually go to that part. Yeah, this part. Using false weights and measures to cheat customers. So this, with regards to that time, because usually they need to use a scale to weigh things. So let's say you want to buy 1 kilogram of rice, but the weight on the left side is probably just only maybe 800 grams. And then you claim to the customers that this is 1 kilogram when the scale is balanced. So this could be won by deceitfulness. And then if we go back to the right livelihood, by trickery or deceit. And we should not acquire wealth in a ways that entail harm and suffering. This can be clearly seen in the recent farm factory where they raise animal and then raise it for slaughters. So meat production is also mentioned below. Going into more specific kinds of livelihood, there are 5 specific that we should avoid as well. Dealing in weapons, for obvious reasons, because weapons are usually meant to harm others, like guns or knife. But knife, sometimes if you go to Plaza Singapura, at the top level, you will see a shop that's selling knife. But I feel like that one is more for hobby purposes, for collection purposes, rather than for harming others. Yeah. But it's still, I think, kind of in the borderline. Yeah, but if you can, just try to avoid. In living beings, yeah, just now I mentioned raising animals for slaughter, slave trade, and prostitution. Slave trade, perhaps in the Buddha's time, it is much more common. Nowadays, I'm not sure if any country still do some kind of slave trade. Probably not during that time's context, but more in a corporate slave context. I am also a corporate slave, so maybe it's still happening, but in a different way. Yeah, prostitution is also one. Meat production and butchery in poisons. Do people sell poisons? Do you guys know anyone selling poisons? I've never heard of, at least I never encountered anyone selling poisons. I don't even heard of it.
Can I jump in here?
Yes.
Selling poisons will come in the form of all drugs that has poisons are controlled by the law. Now, so if a doctor, for instance, we read about doctors who prescribe cough mixture, illegitimately, that means actually because I have an addiction to cough mixture, I keep going back to the GP to get, and this GP is not professional. He starts selling it to me regularly because it's easy money. That is selling poison wrongfully.
I see. Okay, thanks for sharing one example. Show me. Actually, that made me recall the recent ivermectin case. Do you remember? Just like within the past month. Probably they're selling poisons as well. And in intoxicants, I still recall Sai Kiang mentioning to Shifu about helping your sister. Yeah, that could be one, but I think Sai Kiang has repented. So that's one, selling alcohol. Interestingly, it does not mention drugs, heavy drugs like cocaine or heroin. But I would say it probably falls under intoxicants as well.
Yeah, poisons and intoxicants.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Now, several dishonest means of gaining wealth.
Sorry, can I jump in also?
Yes.
I think under this, and especially related to the last precept, it would also include pornography. It doesn't have to be in the form of poison, as in putting it through the mouth or through IV, but it can come in the form of, say, anything that is harmful to body and mind, including like pornography, gambling, that sort of thing. That would be how I understand it.
But I would say pornography is more towards entertainment side. I'm not sure. I mean, it could be borderline, but it does feel more like categorized under the entertainment industry. So it's just like any movies in the Hollywoods out there where people flock to see. But pornography, I would say, probably a much lower, much a base kind of entertainment.
It is no longer entertainment once there is a dependency. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, this is it can be, yeah. I mean, this can be debatable, but I think most of us would agree that pornography is also bad. A bad thing to, firstly, a bad thing to indulge on. Secondly, it's a bad thing to produce as well. So thanks for sharing. Show me. Okay. Maybe let's see what are these several dishonest means of gaining wealth. Practicing deceit. This one is similar to what I mentioned about false wigs, I guess, but there could be others as well. Treachery. So what is treachery? Betrayal of trust. So in the Buddha's time, there is probably a war era, and then some people can betray each other. And even in the recent times, you can see in the papers, businesses, people betraying their bosses. Can you think of a recent example? Treachery. One that I recall is one professor told me, so an engineer, has worked in a company for few years, and then they have gained all the training materials. The company spent a lot of time and investment to train this employee for few years, let's say. And then this employee take all the training materials and then jump into the competitor's company. So probably there is one example of treachery in our modern context. Soothsaying. So what is soothsaying? The act of foretelling events, prediction, or prophecy. Yeah. So this is one. Trickery is similar to the false wake. What is usury?
Usury.
The action or practice of lending money at unreasonably high rates of interest. So this is what we call loan shark. Usury. So I borrow my friend $1,000. If you don't return me by 1 week, you have to pay me $1,500. 50% interest rate. That is pretty high. Usury, loan shark. Okay, the last line is just explaining that there can be secondary impact as well, such as selling weapons or intoxicants. It does not violate the earlier factors, but it can be wrong because of the consequences for others. Okay, any comments for this paragraph, a long one? What are some examples of wrong livelihood that you can think of? Okay, if not, probably we can finish this paragraph. How about who would like to read? Saiken, would you like to read?
Yes, thank you, Marcel. The Thai treatise discusses the positive aspects of right livelihood under the three convenient headings of rightness regarding actions, rightness regarding persons, and rightness regarding objects. Rightness regarding actions means that workers should fulfill their duties diligently and conscientiously, not idling away time, claiming to have worked longer hours than they did, or pocketing the company's goods. Rightness regarding persons means that due respect and consideration should be shown to employers, employees, colleagues, and customers. An employer, for example, should assign his workers chores according to their ability, pay them adequately, promote them when they deserve a promotion, and give them occasional vacations and bonuses. Colleagues should try to cooperate rather than compete, while merchants should be equitable in their dealings with customers. Rightness regarding objects means that in business transactions and sales, the articles to be sold should be presented truthfully. There should be no deceptive advertising, misrepresentations of quality or quantity, or dishonest maneuvers.
Yeah, thanks, Saiken. So this one is according to the Thai treatise, not according to the sutta. But this part, not idling away time. So what do we call this in Singapore? Jia zua.
It's snake.
It's snake. But do you guys know why it's actually called it's snake? So I'm not sure, but just a quick research. Someone said, the Agma said, snakes is like have no bones, so lazy and always slither around. So this could be one reason, but I'm not totally sure. So 假抓. Secondly, an employer should pay them adequately, promote them, give them occasional vacations and bonuses. So, my boss, if you're watching, you know what to do. Okay. But this one, jokes aside, let's define equitable here. Fair and impartial. Valid in equity as distinct from law. I think it would be in the first definition. Fair and impartial when dealing with customers. This one, this line, business transaction and sales, the articles to be sold should be presented truthfully. This one is more for the marketing department. Sometimes marketing can exaggerate their products just to get sales there. And this applies to the last line as well. There should be no deceptive advertising, misrepresentations, or dishonest maneuvers. So, any questions or comments for right livelihood? It's only 2 paragraphs here, so there is not much to cover. Okay, all good? Okay, if no comments, then let's wrap up for today with dedication. 愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了，普愿罪障悉消除，实是常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。Till we meet again, may we be guided by the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And have a right livelihood Friday ahead. And tomorrow you get to enjoy the weekend. Thanks for participating, everyone, and see you guys again next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.